Hi, I'm Michael Moon. Welcome to the Temple of Sound, where I share my love of astrology and healing music. Today we'll be diving into the astrology of this full moon, this astrological blue moon, out of bounds, wild feminine energy happening. And I'm going to share what a blue moon is, what a out of bounds moon is, along with the specific lunation of this full moon for this summer and what that means. So there'll be a bit of technical stuff to share something very special about this time that we're living in, as well as a specific for this general summer. So even if you're not listening on the day of the moon, it's okay. There's going to be a lot of information here that might be interesting to you, especially if you're in touch with the moon. And we're familiar with the moon cycles every month. Every month the moon has a new moon and a full moon, but they don't line up. There's 12 months in a year. There's 12.3 lunations in a year, 12.3 something. So they don't exactly line up. But they do actually line up if you look at the cycle in a 18.6 year cycle. 18.6 years is the moon's special cycle, where the year is the sun's special cycle. We think of the month as being the moon cycle, and it is. From one new moon to the next new moon is 29 and a half days. And so you can see a week is approximately a quarter moon, a little bit more. So at this time, so we're familiar, we see the new moon growing into a full moon, going back to new every month-ish. And the sun, we're familiar with its cycle. And in particular, what's important here is its solstice equinox cycles, which actually are what we consider months and what we consider signs in astrology on some level. Though the months don't exactly line up anymore, they're more closely related to a month. So at winter solstice, we have the sun rising to the south. I'm going to sort of show with my finger here. And it kind of rises in a low arc in the southern sky and sets kind of to the south. So southwest, southeast. So this sun rising in the east slowly each day through the first half of the year goes further and further to the north until we have summer solstice. And then the sun rises really far north and it crosses over and sets really far south, which makes the longest days in the northern hemisphere. Shortest in the southern, they're opposite. And then it stays still, solstice, still sun, for, you could say 3 days, you could say 5, 6. It's like, what it means by still, obviously it's not still. We're all moving. Everything's moving. The sun is spinning around the galaxy millions of miles an hour. The Earth is rotating and it's spinning around the sun. But from our perspective on Earth, which is what astrology is mapping, our connection to the universe, personally, the sun rises in the same spot each day around the solstice times. Furthest to the north in the summer, furthest to the south in the winter in the northern hemisphere. And in this surprisingly large difference, if you really look at it, it's amazing. Where I live, I can see this and I map it out compared to where it's hitting what building and what tree over the year. It's like my, I call it my condo henge. So you can map the time of the year And this is what the ancients did with places like Stonehenge. And it creates this area of the sky where the sun can be, called the ecliptic, and that's the stars behind the ecliptic are what we call the zodiac, and give us like the clock face of the signs of the zodiac, the fixed stars along that path. And the sun and the planets and the moon pretty much stick in this path. Except every 18 and a half years, the moon has the opportunity at each lunation to have its version of a solstice, a moonstice you could call it, a still point where the moon rises to its furthest north and its furthest south. And what's special about this is its furthest north and furthest south are actually beyond the sun's. So the moon actually can go beyond where the sun goes, which makes it what we call out of bounds. It's broken free of the ecliptic of the sun's path and is at the full moon of summer solstice extra low in the sky, and at the full moon of winter solstice extra high in the sky, going way above where you'll ever see the sun, and in the winter sky way below where you'll ever see the sun. And when you're further north, and Cavendish Stone Circle in Scotland is a great example of this, so there are actually an amazing number of ancient stone circles and earthworks even in North America that track this path and this hidden cycle, you could say. Hidden in that we moderns didn't even recognize it till 1969, believe it or not. And yet the ancients tracked this. And some of these ancient stone circles, we couldn't understand why they were set up the way they were. We could see the summer solstice alignments and stuff, but there were things that seemed to track the eclipses. What it seems that they were tracking was this cycle. And the great examples, Cavendish Stone Circle in Scotland, where the moon at this time will rise, and because it's very far north and there's a mountain range there, it rises and it just kind of hangs over the mountains, and they say the mountain looks like a reclining goddess. They talk about it as a special time when the feminine, the goddess, comes to the earth, rides the land, brings the feminine wisdom to the earth. And it can only happen at the lunation, the summer solstice of this 18.6 year cycle, which we see in the astrology chart as the north node in Aries. In particular, the peak of it is the north node, 0 degrees Aries. So at the year and a half period where the north node is in Aries and late Pisces, you can have this out of bounds moon, which can only happen when the moon is in certain signs, in particular Capricorn, Sagittarius, or Cancer and Gemini. Basically the solstice and the solstice degrees, the signs on either side of the solstice points. And so it's a lot to get into. I'm not going to go into too many astronomical details, but it's incredibly profound and very interesting how the moon has these very strong cycles that are yet harder to track, because the moon can seem like it's all over the place. One night it's high, and then a few nights later it's quite low, and it's related to this whole cycle and the wobble of the earth and the turn of how our earth is pointing, and the fact that our earth is an ellipse cycle and the moon is an ellipse. They're not perfect circles, and the way they interact. And the north nodes, or the nodal positions in the charts in general, are a way of understanding and mapping these ellipses and how they progress in time. So also this lunation, this full moon, is the second full moon of Cancer and Capricorn. which makes it an astrological blue moon. We hear about blue moon being two full moons in 1 month. That's kind of just disconnected from what it was originally, which is 2 full moons in a sign, which is, again, it's another cycle. As I said, there's 12.3 plus years in, or full moons in 1 solar year. So that's a little more than the 12 months that we have, right? So like we have leap years every 4 years. We have years where we have 13 moons and years where we have 12 moons. In the years where we have 13 moons, we can get a blue moon in a sign. And again, this cycle lines up every 18 years. That's where it kind of comes back. So if you look at your astrology, every around 18 years, you should have a sun moon. So when you have your birthday, it's what we call a solar return. The sun returns to where it was when you were born. And every solar return chart, the moon will be in a different place, but every 18 years, the moon will be in the same place it was when you were born, and the sun. So you can see that cycle coming around. So this 18.6 year cycle is very important. And it was tracked by the ancients. So they felt it was very important. And here we are on one of these lunations. And it's particularly rare. I mean, we actually live in an extremely profoundly rare time period, because at this time we have this period when the goddess walks the earth. And this happens, again, it happens on the solstices. But we're also, this is happening during a time period when the solstices line up with the center of our galaxy, which was what the whole 2012, the end of time, the beginning of time, was talking about. During this period, the solstice points where the sun stood still was right at the center of the galaxy. Approximately. The same degree of the center of the galaxy. But the center of the galaxy is in declination, which is so we have the degrees of the zodiac this way and the declination away from the ecliptic this way. If that makes any sense. So we have these two movements. And as the sun, let's say the winter solstice, 0 degrees Capricorn, the center of the galaxy is the very end of Sagittarius, but it's below where the sun can go. But at a lunation, when the moon is out of bounds, at that point, it can hit that spot. And so it's the only time we can have one of our lights line up exactly on the center of the galaxy, and what they call occult it, go pass in front of it to our eyes in 12,000 years kind of time. So it's a very rare point in history from our astronomical point of view from Earth. And we can read this as it's a very special time. We can tell there's a lot of intensity, a lot of change, a lot of growth, a lot of pressure for something new to be born happening, a lot of danger that if we keep going the way we're going, something bad could happen. So we can feel this, we can feel the intensity, and we can see the specialness of this time, that there's something new coming. And so here we are. And one of the things that can trigger this are these lunations happening like we have now. And in particular, the last full moon was on this point. And this one as well will be out of bounds, very low to the sky. So it'll be one of those moons that you can see. I mean, depending on where you are, the further south you are, the higher it'll look, but it'll still be lower than it ever really looks. The further north you go, the lower it is. If you think about a globe, if you look at just a regular globe, you can see these astrological points on the globe. You have the Tropic of Capricorn in the south. You have the Tropic of Cancer in the north. Remember I said the summer solstice is the northernmost point. That's our 0 degrees of Cancer. Tropic of Cancer is the place on the Earth's surface where the sun is overhead at its furthest point to the north. The Tropic of Capricorn is a place where the sun is overhead and its furthest place to the south. 0 degrees Capricorn, the Tropic of Capricorn. Tropikos in Greek means turnaround. These are the places where the sun turns around in its apparent path and creates this sine wave, if you will. And then you have the Arctic Circle, where at summer solstice, above the Arctic Circle, the sun never sets. And at winter solstice, above the Arctic Circle, the sun never rises. And you have these astronomical, astrological kind of boundaries painted on our globes that show us what our tropical zodiac is all about, actually. So when people say the tropical zodiac is not connected to the stars, they are correct. It's connected to our experience on Earth of the astronomy, of how we interact with the sun, the moon, the planet. And the stars act as, if you think about it, the stars are just, we paint the constellations, and they kind of become the numbers on the clock, so we know where to point. And that's a whole other story, but I thought I'd mention it. So the further north you go, the more extreme the heights and lowness come, is basically what I'm saying in terms of the between the Arctic Circle and the Tropic of Cancer and the Antarctic Circle and the Tropic of Capricorn. There's these extremes that can grow. And at these northernmost latitudes, like we have at Cavendish, we have the moon only rising enough to be above the mountains and just crossing and touching the earth, rising along the goddess. So the ancients must have seen this, that they see that it happens every 18-ish years, and that they build this thing to start tracking it because they've been watching it over time. And they do rituals and they connect to it with this feminine energy coming to earth. And if you think about it, it's leaving the sun's path, the sun being more the masculine energy, and breaking free. And the wild feminine, the lunacy, the non controlled energy that our society is so afraid of. So this energy breaking free at this time in history. And now I'll mention a bit about the specific full moon that we've got now, because this particular full moon not only is doing all this, but it's also lining up with Pluto. And Pluto it's in an interesting position. It entered Aquarius just when AI got released into the world. There's this push to something new, this Aquarian energy. But Pluto, it's easy to think right now, because technology is exploding, that somehow Pluto is increasing that. And once we get Pluto in Aquarius, technology is going to completely explode, which is true. But Pluto also unravels, reveals the shadow of the things that it connects to. So it's also going to bring up all the problems with technology, and also helping technology solve problems that have happened in the past cycle, in the Capricorn cycle, where we have all the work done on society structures. And this lunation, this full moon being 29 degrees of Capricorn and Cancer. Capricorn Cancer axis. This is again the second full moon in this axis. It's all about protection. How do we survive, and how do we, the Cancerian way is to hold and protect and to nurture and to womb, and the Capricorn way is to build structures that hold to our children's children so we can survive into the future through the winter. And this coming with Pluto, yes, it's in Aquarius, but it's just gone retrograde, and it's going to move back into Capricorn it's through the fall over at this point these degrees, and it's going to be very interesting because it's cleaning up all the remaining stuff to do with the power structures and how they connect to this new energy being born, coming through with Pluto moving into Aquarius. And Pluto moving into Aquarius by itself is one thing. The reason it's such a new energy being born is it's moving into Aquarius as Neptune, also very connected to this full moon, is moving into Pisces. It's been in Pisces for 15 years or so, and it's like at the very end of the degrees of the zodiac, 29, 56 minutes, and there's 60 minutes in a degree, so it's like it's kissing Aries, the very first degree of the zodiac. And Neptune is spiritual liberation, it's delusion, it's illusion, it's dissolving boundaries. It's a beautiful energy for opening things up into the new and dissolving things that are not working, unraveling things that are not working, clearing away the stuff, sweeping us into a new place. And in Pisces, it's been very strong. It's a comfortable sign. You could say it's its own sign in terms of modern astrology, Jupiter and traditional, but still, it's a very beautiful place for Neptune. But it's also been, with everything going on, Neptune has kind of gotten to Neptune here in many ways. There's been a lot of opening, a lot of spiritual awareness, but a lot of delusion, illusion, not sure what's true, what's not true, and confusion as well. If we use Neptune in Pisces to really connect spiritually, we can have a profound inner connection to what is real and true directly. If we're listening to what other people are saying right now, it's impossible to know the truth. It's like everybody's got the truth, nobody's got the truth. It's a complete mess of illusions and delusions and truths coming out, yes, but also a lot of noise. Essential with Neptune, it can get so confusing unless you have something to help it ground, to get clear. And that's meditation. That's like the spiritual discipline. And so we've had Saturn over the last 2 years coming into Pisces, helping with that, kind of pushing us in that direction. Saturn has also gone retrograde before it got all the way through Pisces. So now we have both Neptune and Saturn retrograde in Pisces. We have Pluto retrograde. We have Uranus. Again, this is also connected to all these outer planets are aspecting this full moon right now. So they're very strongly activated, but they're all moving retrograde except Uranus that's about to move retrograde. So it's very still right now. There's all this movement forward and all this pulling in, this intense pulling in. To me, it's calling us to go, yeah, there's a lot of craziness happening out there. There's a lot of stuff. Fear. Neptune and Pisces can be very fearful because there's no boundaries and we don't know what's affecting us and what could come out of the blue. And Saturn can emphasize that with its heaviness. But at the same time, Saturn in Pisces as well can be the discipline to go in and to do our own work and to connect spiritually to something outside of the noise and be able to shut out the noise, create boundaries for the Neptunian Piscean consciousness, subconscious, that is like we're all connected. We all are connected. Whatever's happening to the earth is happening to us. Whatever's happening on one side of the earth and the other side, all the wars, everything, it truly does impact us. The environmental issues, they don't just impact us physically as our climate changes, etc. It impacts us energetically. We feel the edge, we feel the danger, but we also, the fear can take over and can make us, it can be uncontrollable with this much Piscean energy happening. Why do I put so much talk into this? Because with Neptune just kissing the edge of Aries, it's like leaving the end of the zodiac and moving into the beginning of the new is such a huge shift. Such a huge shift. And especially for Neptune at this point, because it's been so strong, but it's also been so diluted. Aries is like this clear light coming through potentially. But it's not happening. It's not yet. It's coming soon, but coming soon to a planet near you. But not yet. Next year. So we felt this, like it's almost come, now it's going back. It's like turn in, turn in, turn in. Like find your truth right now. Find your truth. Because the shit's about to hit the fan. Or it already is. And at the same time, don't be afraid, because the fear is kind of over the top right now, and it doesn't have to be so strong. When Neptune moves into Aries next year, Saturn will have also gone backwards and gone forwards and caught up to it. 0 degrees Aries, Saturn and Neptune coming together. Uranus, which is connected to this, and I'll mention it in a moment, coming into 0 Gemini, connecting to that 0 Aries point. Now remember, 0 Aries is also where the North Node is when this special moon can happen, the out of bounds moon. The North Node, of course, is in Aries because that's where it has to be to create this type of moon. So we're going to have the North Node around 0 Aries. We're going to have Neptune and Saturn lining up with it. Very profound shift of consciousness. Adding to that, Uranus, 0 Gemini, consciousness shift again, like breakthroughs. We are talking technology, but I think more consciousness. Pluto at 0 degrees Aquarius right now, moving back into Capricorn, coming back into Aquarius next year. All of them hitting these 0 degree points together en masse with this incredible push of vibratory frequency, energy of change, fast change, ahas, clarity. There could be all kinds of results of this. I mean, a lot of people are afraid of war under these connections, and it is possible. It has been seen before, particularly in the U.S. This is a U.S. Pluto return. The U.S. it's a Uranus return whenever Uranus has been in Gemini, and this is the first Pluto return, but the Gemini, so when the States was created during the American Civil War, and again now, we can see there's instability there. I'm not going to predict anything. This is not about politics. It's really about what's happening internally in terms of the way I'm looking at it. Of course, there's external around it too. But we have to be careful of fear right now, because that fear can be overtaken with this Neptune Piscean, Saturn Pisces thing happening with Pluto right on this moon. Very intense feelings. But that very intensity can draw us in. The fact that it's all retrograde right now. Mercury's about to go retrograde. Uranus about to go retrograde. there, all the outer planets basically going retrograde. Also Chiron about to go retrograde. It's in Aries. So it's clearing the way, all the wounds of our self and our self-worth, and how we can trust ourselves outside of what society is saying, and really showing up authentically as our unique selves is being healed, triggered, challenged in general. Anybody where it's touching them personally, that's where you really feel it. So any of these things I'm saying, if they're touching a degree in your chart, if you've got a 0 degrees point at Aries or Gemini or Aquarius or any of the angles to them, you'll be feeling this extra strong. If this lunation is on your chart, you'll be feeling it really strong, etc. So it's got to be connected to you. For instance, so Uranus and Mars came together last week. It touched Trump's chart, and out of the blue, he gets shot at. Uranus and Mars are a trigger event, and something can come out of the blue, an accident, something to wake us up, something to shake us up. The last time they came together was January 6th of 2020. So we had all that happen. Sorry, 2021. January 6th, 2021. So we know what that was about. Things that shake us up. So we've had that energy is still happening. It's connected to this full moon, because the midpoint of Mars and Uranus are on the degree of this full moon. And Mars at this point is 0 degrees Gemini. So that's where Uranus is going to come at the time of all this change, all this movement forward next year. So what does all this mean? We are at a very profound pressure cooker moment here where there's a lot of energy trying to move forward, but it's being very internalized. There's a lot of noise, but I just feel like it's wanting us to come in to ourselves. Of course, this is everything I say is going to be connected to my own personal spiritual work and the way I see the world, so take it with a grain of salt, but that's how I see it, that this is a time to really take back our sovereignty, take back our power, work at how life is affecting us, let it shake us up. Let it bring forth our wild, feminine, free spirit to really shake up our lives and shake up the lives around us, to be real, to be authentic, to be wild again, to not be so caught up in the drama that we just freeze, to shake and move our energy, but not, generally not to force change externally right now. With everything going retrograde, it's like an internal shift. We change the world by changing ourselves. And it can seem impossible right now. The external stuff is so big. And that's the Neptune, Saturn, and Pisces. Like, it's just so impossible to touch. It's so big, so vast. And yet, that when it comes into Aries, it's going to be more touchable, but also more in our face. So we're going to have to deal with it. Right now, it's more internal. We can the best way to work with it, shall we say, is internally and spiritually, and grounding whatever this new frequency is that wants to come through, that is more of a consciousness shift. That's the best way I can describe it. That over the next few years, you're going through a profound consciousness shift. And I've got a video I've been sitting on for the last couple months that I haven't posted on this, talking about the history of this consciousness shift through time, from the great axial age, when Buddhism and Jainism and Taoism and all these Confucianism, these ancient religions were all birthed at that time, and how they connect in history from there to the 1500s, when we had the whole shift in the church with Martin Luther putting his demands in the door, and Copernicus. discovering and making the statement that the Earth is not the center of the universe. We're just a planet spinning around the sun, and this was such a dangerous information. He was jailed for it. And yet that consciousness shift eventually gave the foundation for all our industrial age and science and the age of that we've been through, this incredible transformation. And astrologically, all signs point that over the next few years, we are going through a shift as profound as those times, creating a whole new paradigm in how we are, our consciousness, how we relate to being human, what it means to be human. Some of this will have its challenges, of course, with technology and kind of working with that. How do we balance that? How do we grow through all the issues we have with technology, as well as how do we there's the shadow. Like AI is a perfect example of this, because we're afraid of it, and it's something that's here. And how is it going to impact us? I mean, it's creating a paradigm shift, a crisis point, an existential crisis for many, including myself as a musical artist, creating, my big passion is creating unique pieces of healing art with so much sort of soul and sweat, blood, and tears inside, and being so passionate about never using samples or computers and just using organic sounds and keeping things like pure to the energy, spending years perfecting my artistic statements. And now you can go online and type something, go boom, there's your piece of music. Thank you very much. Now, of course, it's empty energetically, but it's compelling. And is it empty energetically? We don't know. I mean, that's the whole thing. But it feels like it. I mean, it feels, some of what I've heard is better than the pop music I hear on the radio in terms of what AIs have created. Maybe just because it's more interesting. I don't know. But even the voices that can be recreated now, it's incredible and scary. It creates a crisis. It's happening. So we can't fight it, but how do we work with it? What do we do with it? Each individual. The beginning of the Industrial Revolution that was birthed through Copernicus's realization, and then Newton and people came along, and the age of reason and technology, the early technology, and the age of machine, and then consciousness was seen as mechanical, and we built upon that, and that seemed like the big, huge technological breakthrough at the time, and all these corporate entities came through at that time, and they based everything on it. And then they were surprised when that started unraveling, because human consciousness made a huge shift away, and it birthed the Romantic movement of everything being connected to feelings and spirit and creativity and not rationalism, and created this balance point. So I believe that we have that kind of experience coming up on a whole new level. We're also in a place where we've got massive cycles happening, one of them being the Pluto-Uranus cycle that was birthed in the 60s, and we had that whole flowering culture happening. We had a crisis point of that around 2012, 2015, the square. What are we going to do with it? And there's a new birth of consciousness around psychedelics coming into use. In particular, the 60s also had that psychedelics quality in their infancy with LSD, and then you had this sort of ayahuasca revolution, people doing ceremonies and going to Peru and commercializing all that, and all of a sudden these drugs are suddenly becoming either gray or legal even, and experiments are being done. And there's many other things in consciousness, but this is an easy one to track. You see the 60s where it was born, then the crisis point, the 2012s. Well, right now, remember I mentioned we got the 0 degrees points, and Uranus is about to enter Gemini, 0 degrees. Pluto is going to be 0 degrees Aquarius. That's a perfect trine. So we have the next point in that cycle happening. And this one's an easy one. It's an opening one. So this idea of expanding consciousness and finding new ways to grow and to use the paradigm shifts that are happening to truly shift our consciousness into a new way of being is a big part of what's happening. And of course, there's always the shadowy stuff that comes with all this stuff, and the manipulations and the things that can work. So all the technology stuff can bring all kinds of problems, and Pluto is going to be going through that and hopefully unearthing some of these problems and finding, hopefully I trust we'll find solutions to them, find ways to work with these new technologies as they come up. I believe we're going to have new technologies for healing, new technologies for helping clean up the mess we've created over the Industrial Revolution. I think one of the key things, and I've talked about this before, of this whole period of time is moving away from the materialistic industrial society we've had over the last 200 years and moving into a new air in cycle of the information age and technology. And we'll see how we work with that. It's a challenge, but we're up for it. It's where we're at. And this lunation at this time holds a special place in these big, vast cycles, as many of them do, because we're in these big, vast cycles. They're happening. And whenever something like this happens that triggers them, we're going to feel the intensity of that and feel the internal need to do something within ourselves to align with these bigger changes, and especially if they're happening on your chart, which of course I can't talk about here because every chart's unique and individual. But in an individual chart where you see all these things happening, you can really pinpoint where that individual is playing out their role in this bigger shift and bigger cycle, and how we can each be a part of the change we wish to see in the world, and it's happening whether we like it or not. So enjoy the ride, enjoy this full moon. Take note of how low it is in the sky compared to others, and take note of, in general, why sometimes the moon seems high, sometimes it seems low, sometimes you just don't know where to look for it. The first thing is to learn the lunar cycle each month, where to see it at a new moon, a full moon, quarter moons. I'm not going to get into all that. And then these bigger cycles of how it moves in relation to the earth and the sun, and how we are a part of this magic. And feeling our place in that magic helps us feel the magic and helps us align to our potential and how we can help make this world a better place. I'm Michael Moon. Thank you so much. See you next time.